Welcome to the Straight Out of Home Video podcast, part of the Geeky Waffle Network. Today's episode is Gargoyles the Movie, Heroes Awaken. And with me is Bri. Hey, Bri.
Hi.
We got Robert.
Hey, everybody.
And Alice.
Hi.
So I need to know, were you guys Gargoyles fans like I was as a child?
100%. Oh, yeah.
Robert, I think you were not, right?
I was not, and it's not because it's not that something I actively disliked as a kid. I was watching a lot of other things at this point, and I ironically, I read on, I think the wiki, just doing research on the show, that this, like, Power Rangers kind of usurped Gargoyles' popularity at the time. That's what I was watching around this time. That, Darkwing Duck, Animaniacs, like, I think ironically, the fact that the show is so serious comparatively to a lot of the other Disney programs is probably why as a kid I was more inclined to watch other things. So I was aware of it, and I think I even had a Goliath action figure somewhere. But
Pretty sure
not
they came
something
out of McDonald's.
Probably. But it's not something I ever got big into.
Well, speaking of serious, this is the first drama Disney animated series. Once again, this is a movie that is taken from the pilot episodes. Bri and I have been seeing this a lot lately.
Oh, yeah. It's rampant.
I've been having Bri do this in every episode. Bri, can you give us a summary of what this movie is about?
Sure. Let's get serious. Gargoyles. Back in medieval Scotland, there is this one castle that is protected by gargoyles who come alive only at night. And a lot of people don't like them because they think of them as beasts and monsters. So they're scared of them, but they are protectors of the castle. And they don't seem to want to actively harm people because they care about humans, except for this one woman who is Goliath's lover. And she's all for killing people. She's like, let's just kill him. And he's like, nah. And so,
you're literally 5 minutes in.
I know. This is great. So I'm going to speed it up. So then there's action, betrayal of this human, and a lot of the gargoyles die, and then the princess and the people of the castle get kidnapped by the other people who killed
the Vikings,
the bad people. And then the princess gets saved by Goliath, and she's like, oh, you guys aren't bad after all, except in Scottish. And she's like, you're not bad after all. No, that's not Scottish. Anyway.
I don't think she was doing Scottish either, though. She seemed to waver heavily between Scottish
was really
and
bad.
French, yeah. I think.
Yeah, it was iffy. And then this one guy, the mage, he's like sorcerer back in the medieval days. Ooh. He put a spell or a curse on the gargoyles to sleep for 1,000 years. And the princess is like, you mean put them asleep forever? Type of thing. And then Goliath is like, take care of the rooks. Did he call them rooks?
Eggs in the rookery.
Yeah, eggs in the rookery. That's it. Take care of the eggs of the rookery. And then she's like, we'll treat them like they're our own. And he's like, put me asleep. And so, long story short,
Goliath
they end
is
up
suicidal.
Yeah, very much so. So long story short, they sleep for 1,000 years. Castle gets built by an evil billionaire. And how do I know he's evil? Because all billionaires tend to be evil. And so they wake up in New York, and they don't know anything about New York, and it's 1,000 years later, and there's no medieval. They don't understand anything. And there's this detective Maza, and she and Goliath Maza.
Elisa Maza.
Maza, thank you. So Detective Maza, and they go on a little adventure, and lo and behold, now Goliath and the rest of what's left of the gargoyles are now going to be protectors of Gotham. I mean, New York.
Very good.
Nice.
She did it. She only needed a little bit of help. Oh, God. Where to begin? A lot happened.
It was really heavy. Very dense, very heavy. And I was surprised at how well it held up. I remember loving this show as a kid. Mm-hmm. And my mom came in while I was watching it, and she was like, wait a minute, is this Gargoyles? You loved this as a kid. I was like, I know. And I love it now still. I really, it. The drama, it was a little predictable. Of course he's an evil billionaire. He's got a super tall skyscraper in the middle of New York.
Lex Luthor vibes to the max.
Yeah, super, super evil. But, it was predictable in a fun way where I was digging it. I felt like it totally held up.
It definitely does hold up. I like told Candace, I was like, I can't believe how much I forgot. I loved Gargoyles. And the lessons are still lessons that apparently people still need to learn today. And it's really, just like the whole, like, people hate what they don't understand is what Goliath roughly says. And, that still holds up today.
Yeah, this show taught me about racism and prejudice, and Lisa Maza was like really big for me growing up like biracial, because she was like one of the first fictional characters I saw that was mixed.
Yep.
And just again, I always harp on this, but it's like representation matters.
It really does. I mean, like Candace knows, it's like we barely knew anyone who was mixed like we were.
Yeah. And this is actually, I believe this is my first fandom, really, that I got into, where I was like, yes, I am obsessed.
It's really interesting with her. She was actually supposed to be Detective Chavez, I believe, so
Yes.
Hispanic. But when the voice actress was cast, they were like, oh, let's make her African-American. And
Sally Richardson.
Yeah.
I love her. Okay, well, let's talk about some of the voice actors, because there's some big names here. Keith David plays Goliath.
David. Oh,
He's
my
like
God.
25% of why this works, right? At least.
yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Goliath, the character, and Keith David's like voice with all of the gravitas that he brings is so excellent. Like he is so intimidating, even just the sound of his voice, and yet like warm and comforting at the same time. You believe Goliath as a protector of, as you said, Gotham. He's Batman, right? Like
He basically is. I mean, he's a literal version of
and it's so good. It's really excellent.
His wings are basically like a cape. They fold themselves in. Very Batman-esque.
I
in
love
a very
it.
Batman-esque way.
How
And I
would
thought
the
that was so
two
cool.
hooks just hook together to make like a little clasp for the cloak? I'm like, this is genius.
Yeah.
It's
a good
costuming
marketing.
done
getting-
right in animation.
I was getting a big, we made a couple Batman references here. I was getting big Ninja Turtles energy from this as well.
Ooh, yeah.
Group of beasts hidden in the shadows. They have a female human whom's the only person that they trust. So I was getting sort of an April O'Neil and the Ninja Turtles vibe from some of this, which was one of my first fandoms.
Absolutely.
Oh, same.
I had forgotten her name, and she didn't give it for a minute.
Right.
But my brain was filling in April O'Neil, and I was like, "That's not it, Alice. Stop it. This isn't April O'Neil. It's somebody else." And then she gave her name, and I was like, "Oh, duh." But
yeah. I mean,
definitely that.
Ninja Turtles was huge for me. I definitely dressed up like a Ninja Turtle for Halloween.
So this show was originally pitched as a comedy series, which I think would have been more like TMNT.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I guess they scrapped that in favor for a darker, more serious tone.
Yeah, I was surprised watching this more or less now for the first time. I mean, like I said, I think I may have seen it a little bit as a kid, but didn't really retain a lot of it. I was surprised how little of, the shenanigans that the Gargoyles went on is actually, how little that focus that takes on the show. Because we do still have, the one that likes to eat, and like the brainy one, and the one that's a dog. Like we still have like, and I don't know. I'm sure this is just the pilot, like, the first few episodes. I'm sure they get more developed as it goes on. But
Yeah.
I kept trying to decide whether Goliath was just really well characterized or whether they did just like a crappy job with the other gargoyles, because I didn't feel nearly as connected to any of the other characters.
The other gargoyles at first didn't even have names.
Right.
So I feel like for them, they go on a complete character development journey throughout the show. And discovering who each of them are, different personalities. Like Broadway and Lexington, the one who likes to eat and like kind of like the youthful one, are definitely the more ones who get into trouble, get into a little more zany antics, But, they really do grow into their own,
I love
which is nice to see.
I was gonna ask you guys if you guys had a favorite one, because I'm pretty sure Lexington's my favorite.
Oh my gosh, Lexington was definitely one of my favorites.
I loved Lexington. Obviously, Goliath's like the best, but I even just watching it and hearing his voice again, I was like, Lexington rules.
Yeah, Lexington, he was also the more youthful one, so I feel like when I was younger, I connected with him a little more. Like, he was discovering things left and right, just like,
I was. So I feel like he was definitely like my favorite. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'd agree with that.
Robert, you're definitely right, like, about the trio, which is Brooklyn, Lexington, and Broadway. They get better. They actually, the next 3 episodes are each focused on them. And they learn a lesson about the human world. Like, Broadway plays with Elisa's gun and shoots her by accident.
Oh my god.
It gets dark.
I don't remember that. That's
You don't
really
remember-
intense.
Yeah, she nearly dies.
They
She
go
learns
hard
about
with this
gun
show.
safety after that. But yeah, so there's a bunch of different things that happen with that darkness and stuff like that. Like the gargoyles at the beginning, like Bri was giving us that summary. They literally get betrayed by the people who they sworn to protect. Then they're a little wary of Xanatos, but of course he betrays them. And then surprise, surprise, Goliath's love is actually alive.
The
And what does she do?
The one female gargoyle.
Yeah, the one.
The one
For
female
now,
gargoyle.
for now.
For now, of course, she's bloodthirsty and crazy, right? Like,
Yeah.
But I do love Demona. She's so crazy. It's fun. I mean, once you get her backstory and you realize she's been alive for 1,000 years, you kind of be like, I get why you cray.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, she's seen everything.
Yeah, she's literally seen everything. And she's also cursed. It's intense. And that's the great thing about the show. In the pilot, you're just like, why does she hate humans so much? I don't get it. And then we get like a 5-parter. I think it's called City of Stone. And we get her whole backstory. And it makes you have sympathy for her. And I actually met Martina, who voices her, at one of the conventions. And I just mentioned like how much the show meant to me and how seeing not everything was black and white. That's what it taught me as a kid.
That's the beauty of this, I think. It teaches you to not be overly cautious of who to trust, but to know, like, not all the people who say they're going to help you will.
Oh, we were talking about Lexington before, and the creator, Greg Weisman, actually admitted that he wanted to make Lexington gay, but Disney, obviously, especially in the 90s, wouldn't have allowed that.
I would have.
That would have been great. Loved Lexington.
Yeah.
There was so much about this that I really loved, and I loved revisiting like it was nice to start something from the beginning and get like the earliest part of the episode did like a flashback. You know, you get Elisa at the base of the tower watching the damage, and then you flash all the way back, and I thought that was so clever and such like a good structure for a pilot to get us like to pull you into the story. And there was so many little things like that that I thought were so clever. But did you guys notice, like, at what point did you guys notice that they were doing screen wipes that were like claws slashing through the screen? Did you guys?
I remember that from the
Yeah.
TV series.
I remember it
For
from the
some
TV
reason.
show. I was watching it. We watched 5 whole episodes of it, which are, you know, is the movie. It's the first 5 episodes of the show. Watching like 2 or 3 whole parts, and then all of a sudden they started doing the screen wipe, or did I just miss it the few times? And then I just watched part 5 and I didn't see it at any point in part 5. It was like one episode had that
I guess they
that
just
screen
switched
wipe.
it around.
It was so strange, but it was cool. I was like, I wanted more of that. It reminded me so much of like, it was being a kid and watching a show where they didn't necessarily always show it all in order. You know, you get a previously on Gargoyles at the beginning of every episode. You get a next time on Gargoyles. You know, it just, the structure of it was so structured and so neatly written that it felt like you were getting, I felt like I got like a nice package, even though it was 5 whole episodes. It felt like I got a really good arc and a package and a feel for the rest of the show that just, it felt like good to rewatch.
Yeah, and that's the amazing thing about the show is that it's serial. You have to watch every episode in order to kind of understand what's going on.
Yeah.
And I was I have to go home in the afternoons and watch Gargoyles. They're in the middle of a world tour. I need to know where they go next.
It's really the beautiful storytelling technique. Robert, since you weren't like a huge fan of it back in the day, like after watching this, like, are you curious about watching the rest of the series?
I mean, yeah, I'm curious whether or not I'll have the time to do it and everything is a different thing, but I'm glad I finally at least got a baseline of this. And I know that there's been talk of them doing a movie adaptation at some point, which I think in 2018 I saw Jordan Peele.
Oh my gosh,
was interested in being part of that.
Amazing.
And just as you were saying, I think Alice, just like the way it's structured and with the previously and the theme song, which is amazing, and how dare Disney Plus keep asking me if I want to skip the intro, because
it gets better.
I was really getting into it. It gave me those nostalgic feelings of just sitting down and watching shows like this as a kid, having the theme song that like recaps the whole story and the sound design of like in the theme song every time I was like, oh, this is the part where he's gonna climb up the wall, and it's like it was really powerful. It's so technically proficient behind the scenes, just the way that they craft all of that stuff.
Oh my god,
I'm so glad it holds up, and I'm so glad also that it's not just us with our nostalgia glasses on and being like, this is the best show ever. I'm glad that you can also say, as someone who doesn't have that connection, have that opinion. We're not crazy people.
Well, we were saying how it's Batman-esque, Ninja Turtles-esque. These are all things that I like loved as a child and still do now. So it's completely in my wheelhouse, which is why it's insane to me that this sort of flew past my radar, I guess, at the time.
I think it's probably because it's Disney. You just don't expect something like this to come from them.
Yeah, that could be.
As I was talking, like, this was like my first fandom. Something very interesting is this creator, before Twitter, before social media, he would go on one of the Gargoyle fan websites and he would answer fan questions. And this literally like has a community. Like, this was the first show that Disney ever put on DVD in a season collection.
That's cool.
Yeah. Wow. So one of the things, like, I asked Greg Wiseman, it was really cool to tell him, like, one, I made a librarian cry because at like age 7, I asked where the Shakespeare section was because I wanted to read Midsummer's Night's Dream. We asked him, like, why does Hudson have an accent? He's the only gargoyle who has a Scottish accent. And the reason is because he grew up talking to humans.
That's sweet.
Nowadays, we're used to like connecting with creators through Twitter or Facebook or Instagram. But this guy was doing it from the start, and that's amazing.
Well, this show had a convention. The Gathering of the Gargoyles. And I completely didn't even know that existed.
That is so cool.
I admittedly, in the early 2000s, tried to go once, but my parents would not drive me.
Where was it?
Probably because it was out of state. And they're like, Candace, you're not going to go to an internet thing.
If they did one now, I absolutely would go. 100% would go. That sounds so fun.
We could all go as a group.
No, I definitely submitted like fan fiction to the Gathering. Like, they would do fan fiction writings. I admit to it. I wrote Gargoyle fan fiction.
That is so cool. I think if I had a chance to ask the creator anything, I would ask why we had like VHS tapes and floppy disks, but also like lasers and cool airships like in the same universe. Not because I have a problem with those things existing in the same world. I just want to know like what cool alternate universe this is that has those technologies all existing in the same place, because it's neat. It grounded it in reality because we all used VHS tapes and floppy disks at the time. But also had, like, kind of cool, futuristic sci-fi, like the guys in their shiny armor and their laser gun that he pulls out of a secret panel in the wall and that airship that they crash into the river. It's all so neat. I loved it.
Yeah, literal robots.
Yeah.
Literal robots flying around.
Or when they're doing construction on the castle, when they're picking the castle up to move it on top of the tower, there was a guy walking around in, like, a mech suit that helped
like
him
aliens.
pick up that helped him pick up big blocks of stone. And I was like, this is so neat. This is the coolest thing. What a fun like journey.
I wonder if it
show
wanted to be kind of like grounded in reality, but enough disbelief that it does make it fantastical.
Yeah, it made it cool because it grounded in reality further too. Like I got a lot of like 90s New York City crime drama where like the New York City in the 90s was like a really rough place, and she makes a comment about being the only couple in New York being able to not worry about muggers in Central Park and how dangerous, you know, things were back then. But that was like a thing that people just knew about New York in the 90s. They were like, oh, New York, it's super dangerous, you know? And so you're grounding it in this reality of, you know, or of this perception of reality. I didn't live in New York in the 90s. I don't know how dangerous it actually was, but that's what I knew, you know, as a kid. Even I was like, oh yeah, New York, Central Park at nighttime, that place is so dangerous, you know? But then you also get, you know, magic and actual sorcerers and stuff like that. It made it very like stimulating. You don't know what to expect is coming next.
Well, it's funny. The whole arc here centers on the floppy disks and then mecha gargoyles for some reason. Did we ever learn? Maybe I missed it. What was his plan in awakening the gargoyles? That he needed them for the mecha gargoyles? Did I miss the plot? Did I miss a development there, or is it just, you know,
those
something we're supposed to go with?
backup because he wanted them to be obedient to him, to do his bidding. And Goliath,
I was like, if you have these, why did you need to wake them up in the first place? If you have robots that are completely obedient.
Robert, he's a crazy billionaire.
All right, well,
he just wanted the real
cool
things.
With that. I'm just wondering if, like, did I miss something here?
I think it's a power of having control over others. So if he had control over the monsters, like, it just gave him more of like an ego boost.
Right.
Bri, you call them monsters. How dare you?
No. In his perspective,
Oh, that was a save.
Well, he also had Demona on his side and thought that she would help, you know, kind of sway Goliath. And by the way, I was pretty shocked that for a 90s Disney cartoon, she just crashed that entire warship and Goliath wasn't able to go back and save people. That they actually all went down, burst into flames. And then my subtitles, because I watch these things at night when my toddler is sleeping, the subtitle said agonizing cries or something like that. I was like, oh my gosh.
Oh, that's horrifying. I was really
Demona's going hard.
I was really glad they showed the crew jumping out and into the water, because I did get really worried. I was like, this is so dark, Disney.
That was probably the compromise. They were like, well, we'll have them. Yeah, they survived.
Kids watch this.
For sure.
Exactly.
Yeah, and Goliath and Demona kind of are like an angry divorced couple.
Yeah,
like,
so-
I mean, she's trying to murder him too, but...
Well,
They
they kind of seem toxic from the get-go. Like, they just aren't on the same wavelength, you know? Or was I the only one who thought that?
Well, we find out more about why they aren't on the same wavelength at that point. This show was planned out.
Which
like,
I love.
It was planned. Robert, you don't understand, like, everything that comes out. Those eggs in the rookery, they come back.
Oh
yeah, that's like
okay.
Chekhov's eggs in the rookery, though. Like
Nice.
that you mention them so many times, and they like specifically say, you know, oh, make sure that they're good, and the princess is like, I'll look after them like they're my own, or whatever.
No,
Like,
that
do the
she says
accent.
that.
Do the accent.
We look after them like they're our own. I can't.
No,
No,
you're
you nailed it.
it.
You nailed it. It was better than she
Thank
did
you.
it.
Thank you.
And then, you know, when they wake up, they're like immediately, oh my God, where are the eggs? And they're like, oh no, they're gone. Oh, bummer. You know, of course, they gotta come back.
Honestly, now as an adult, I was like, Goliath, you had children to look after.
Mm-hmm.
What the fudge, dude?
Yeah, I don't. And why
he
didn't he
just
just
went to
ask
sleep.
to freeze the eggs for 1,000 years?
Yeah, put a spell on the eggs. That's a good point.
That was a super good point.
That's my
Yeah,
that
instead
was
of
my
having
first. I
humans
was like,
raise
why
them.
didn't he just put them under? He's gonna trust them to the princess who just liked him like 2 seconds ago.
It's a lot.
Here's a good question too. Is this Disney's first Scottish princess? Like decades before Merida?
You know what? Yes, because
I
I
think so.
definitely I was practicing the one thing where she's like, you kind of put them asleep for 1,000 years. Like it definitely was Merida vibes.
That's
Yeah,
super
I
mad.
heard some Merida in there. Well, yeah, the first episode shows a genocide of a whole species, practically. So I'm guessing just like Goliath's been through a lot. He just wants to go to sleep for a while. Okay, let's talk about this because I wrote it down. Not just because of that. So something else in this show. Robert, did you notice anything going on with Elisa and Goliath?
Oh, the sexual tension between the two of them?
Yes.
Yeah. Well,
That was apparent still.
yeah,
I just remember arguing with my little sister. She's like, those two are going to get married. And I'm like, no, that's not how it works. She's human and he's gargoyle. And she's like, no, they're going to get married.
See?
And then like, what?
Candace, you were following the trap that two people can't be together.
I know.
They were vibing each other though, like a lot.
I just wrote Hudson's look at them.
Hudson knew. He's like, oh, this is either going to go well or not. Well.
In Eliza's defense, he does sound like Keith David, so.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah. And he's built. Come on.
You're going to say no to that? Come on.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she said she only felt safe in Central Park with him, so that means the other guys.
She used the word
just...
couple in that scene, too. She said, we're the only couple in Central Park.
That's true.
It was an interesting word choice.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't notice that from the start.
It's a way healthier interspecies romance than Beauty and the Beast, though, too.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, they do in Halloween as Beauty and the Beast.
Oh, nice.
You do.
Yes.
Wait, I
also
don't remember that episode.
There's a moment when Hudson's flipping through the TV where you do see the Lion King for half a second.
Yeah.
That I noticed, too.
Oh, that's
You
nice.
gotta. What else do you guys have in your notes? I know Bri has notes.
But I don't know if you guys watch Teen Titans at all.
A bit.
But I put Lexington reminded me of Beast Boy, which is probably why I liked both of those
Totally
characters a lot.
He does. That's funny. I do like, Beast Boy was my favorite from Teen Titans too. I have a type. I have a cartoon type.
I'm with you.
The only other note I wrote down was the line, pay a man enough and he'll walk barefoot into hell. Which shook me when he said it.
Oh, as a child.
It's a good line.
I was like, oh my God, I'm watching a grown-up TV show.
It was really intense.
But no, apparently, I remember this from one of the things Greg Wiseman said. I remember what this man said. He said that he had to really fight for that line, too.
That's awesome.
I'm glad he
sits
won.
so good.
You have to give Disney props for having the balls to do this.
Mm-hmm.
Because this was unlike anything else in the Disney afternoon. Like, it was Darkwing Duck, DuckTales. What were those bears that jumped? I don't know.
Gummy bears?
Gummy bears, yeah.
Bonkers. This was
Tailspin?
all Tailspin, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Chippendale? Yeah.
I mean, I love Darkwing Duck,
but
but I think Gargoyles was still one of my favorites.
I tried to watch a few episodes of Darkwing Duck. It doesn't hold up like I remember, but this
totally doesn't.
does.
No, I haven't tried because I was like, oh no, I'm gonna hurt on the insides.
See, that's what I was. I was like, oh, I'm gonna get Disney Plus. I'm gonna watch all the old shows that I used to love, and then I was like, oh no, this was a mistake.
I did watch a couple of episodes of Gummy Bears. Oh no, bad mistake.
Bri and I were actually talking. We're like, once we're done with this straight out of home video series, let's do just a Gargoyles rewatch.
Yeah, because like after seeing those 5 episodes again, I'm like, I want to continue this again because I want to just relive every moment of it.
there's just so many great arcs, and they bring up so much myth. Shakespearean plays like Macbeth, Othello. I knew about Othello at like age 7, like because of this show.
One thing I do have to say that I loved about this show is Detective Maza, right? That's her.
Yes.
Okay, great. Detective Maza. I love that she was a detective. Like, she was a woman in like authority, you know? Like, instead of just like April. I loved April O'Neil, don't get me wrong, but like she was a journalist. Like, this woman, like, I don't know, like I just thought there was like some weight to it. And like when she was like, oh, let me investigate, and he like gave her like this little safe tour, and she's like, nah, I'm going back. I'm gonna
She talked to herself a lot. I just noticed that as a kid. Even as a kid, I'm like,
yeah.
but that's what TV characters do.
I was
Okay,
gonna say,
so-
yeah, it's like the one of the hallmarks of early '90s animated like action drama things like this is that everybody has to make everything super obvious, and then the other thing that I noticed too is like the big overacting in the best way, but overacting where like Goliath's like, I've been denied everything, even my revenge. Things like that.
yes.
You're like, wow, that's awesome.
How often he gets to just scream the word
Yes.
revenge, and how every single time he wakes up, he gets to roar a little while he stretches, and it's very good. It's very, very engaging.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So we all watched this on Disney Plus because the only version of this film, the VHS, is a VHS. And I'm pretty sure it's somewhere in my parents' house. I have not searched for it yet. But the Gargoyles, the movie, Heroes Awaken, came up with a VCR game. Do you guys ever remember playing any of those?
No.
So it came like with a board game, and then you would play the video, and it was 20 minutes. And it's like, you have to get to Xancho's tower before Xancho's like kills all the gargoyles.
All right. I would
And
be
every
terrified.
few minutes, lightning would strike, and it would be like Damona's like, I'm going to freeze the last player who went. Or it would be Elisa saying, I'm going to help this last player go 5 spaces. And then it would have a countdown clock if you...
Okay,
like,
now
got
I
too close
kind of
to
want to
it.
play it, though.
That sounds so fun.
Right?
It's awesome. The footage is on YouTube if you want to see what it is. I'll have to see if I still have the board game. So, Bri and I are trying to like rank these. I'm just going to go say 10 out of 10.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
I think, especially of all these movies that we're going to be watching, this is definitely going to be a 10
Oh,
out
boy.
of 10.
No, this one, I mean, it still holds up. I still really like this animation style.
The problem I have with the series is the animation style isn't consistent.
Oof.
They obviously go to different animation houses throughout the series, so
Oh, I
it
guess
changes.
I
But
don't
that's not their
remember
fault.
that.
I
Oh,
have
no.
rewatched
That-
these all as an adult. I have them all on DVD.
Yeah, I thought the animation was consistent. It looked good. They took that there was like challenging moments and dark moments, and yet it was charming and funny at the same time. I think it's hard to get better for as far as like direct to VHS like releases go. I think it's going to be kind of hard to top.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you guys should basically just call it now and say this is probably going to be the number one of your whole rewatch series.
No,
on
Candace
the
wants to
straight-to-video.
torture me further, so...
We got Kim Possible
I love Kim
That's true.
Possible.
eventually. We got Lion King 2.
Lion King 2 Simba's Pride is a total gem. I did just rewatch it. We have Beauty and the Beast, The Enchanted Christmas that I'm really looking forward to. And also, come on, an extremely goofy movie is on this list.
Okay, I do
Yeah,
like
no,
that.
Like,
It's
come
true.
on, that
It's
movie's amazing.
I think my fear is just Pocahontas 2,
Hunchback 2.
The Hunchback of
Hunchback
Notre
2 and
Dame.
Mulan
Pocahontas 2 and
2.
Mulan 2 are going to just
Mulan
drag
2,
the
oh.
whole list down on their own. But I really think that
Cinderella
an extremely
3.
goofy movie is going to bring it right back up again.
It was either Hunchback 2 or Pocahontas 2, because at a certain point I was watching all of these as they were coming out. One of those two, I was just like, yeah, no, I'm good. I think I'm going to cut it off here. And I just stopped watching the ones that came after. I think it was probably Hunchback 2.
I think mine
me,
was Hunchback 2.
I think for me it was Pocahontas 2 as a kid. I was like, oh, movies can be bad? This is a bad movie.
Yeah, I do. Like, we were a VHS collector family. My mom still has so many Disney VHSs at home.
My
And
mom
so,
does
yeah,
too.
All of the direct to VHS tapes ended up at our house, and yeah, I think it was because as a little kid, I remember really liking Pocahontas 2. Obviously, I have revisited it, and that's a hard no. That's a hard pass.
Just not hold up.
But as a kid, I really liked it. I've always been like a romantic. So like a movie that featured a romance, I was always like, yes, I'm for it. You know, give her somebody to kiss. I love that. As you know, even as a kid, I was a shipper. Hunchback of Notre Dame was my favorite Disney movie. Is still my favorite Disney movie. And the sequel, even as a child, I found so disappointing that was, I think, the moment that I grew up to watch the Hunchback
Wow,
sequel.
broke your innocence.
I was
Okay.
like, oh, this is okay. They did a bad job. Movies can be bad. I hate this. I never want to watch it again. I've never watched it again ever since.
Deleted from your headcanon,
Deleted it
basically.
from my head canon.
Alice, I think you definitely need to be on that episode.
Honestly, I'll do it for you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, Bri, we need to we're just putting Alice's name on stuff now. We're like, she's gonna be on for this.
I told you I'll do all of them
How
with
can we
you.
do
I'll do
this?
any of them with you.
I had a question on Gargoyles for those of you, especially Candace, who've seen the whole thing. What's the deal with the third season? In my research, apparently the Goliath Chronicles was a huge drop-off. What happened? What did they change?
Tell you. So the first episode of season 3 is the only one that is considered canon by the creator Greg. It's called Journey's End. I know this stuff, guys, from the top of my head. So what happens with a bunch of series like Community and Gilmore Girls, etc., is they don't let the creator come back, so it ends up being crap.
Okay.
So those like episodes aren't gargoyles. They're called the Goliath Chronicles, and even as a child, I knew something was very wrong. Later on, I believe it's Dark Horse allowed them to do a gargoyle series, which takes place after the third season, first episode, Journey's End. And those comics are amazing, and there's even like a spin-off about some of the villains that we meet.
That's right, because I remember the comic book that Goliath and Mazza break up at one point. And then they get
they would have to get together first, Bri. Geez, spoiler alert.
I mean,
Oh, God.
It's a Disney
interspecies
show.
romance.
I'm sure that's off screen.
It's from the 90s.
It's very complicated.
So did the Goliath Chronicles basically turn into what I was probably scared this would be, which is more TMNT inspired, kind of goofier and like lesser in tone?
Yeah, Broadway becomes like a Hollywood star in one of the episodes. There's an episode where Goliath has a dream he's a human, but he remembers being a gargoyle and he's trying to be back, and he has children with Elisa. It's really weird.
Oh, that is weird. So that's basically sounds like an opportunity for Disney Plus to take those comic books and adapt those into a new series for the streaming service and pick up where the first 2 seasons of this left off.
That would be amazing.
Yeah, Keith David still has a voice.
Yeah.
And Jordan Peele is itching.
He's a Garg fan.
I would watch anything Jordan Peele made.
Same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would watch it 5,000 times if he did Gargoyles.
Shut up and take my money, Jordan Peele.
Shut up and take all my money. We will fund you, Jordan Peele, because you know he listens.
We can't fund that. I don't have that money.
Well, if you start the Kickstarter for it or whatever, like the
That's
money will
true.
come.
That's
if you build
true.
it, they will come.
Yes. Okay. So, Robert, how can people find you and your podcast online?
You can find the Crooked Table podcast at crookedtable.com, on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all your favorite podcatchers.
Alice, tell us about your podcast.
You can find Those Happy Places, my baby, my precious sweet love. Those Happy Places is at thosehappyplaces.com, on Twitter at happyplacespod. And you can find Rogue Fun, a podcast story, on Twitter at Rogue Fun Pod, and I'm on Twitter and Instagram at Alice White THP. For Those Happy Places, go listen to Those Happy Places.
You can find us at thegeekywaffle.com and at Geeky Waffle on all social media. And please remember to go to our community page on Facebook called The Geeky Waffles, and we can talk more gargoyles there. Because definitely Candace is down, and I am as well.
I have so much information in my head I did not realize was there about this show.
I didn't know you wrote to the creator.
I wrote to the creator. I wrote fan fiction.
I want to read some of that.
I need to find it. I need to find like
If you
my
find it,
old
I'll do a
Dell, like,
live
hard
reading
drive.
of it.
I would die to
Yeah,
read
it
it,
also-
please.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, it was probably about Elisa Mazza because that girl had my heart. I always find a hero in these shows. I was like, yeah. Anyway, that's it for today. We hope you have a happily ever after until the sequel.